teacups, what's brewing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for spending your time here. We've got a fair few lives to get through today. I'm actually not going to be taking them one by one. I'll list them out for you. These are just the ones she's done in the last day. So you can tell she's really back in Canada because this is the schedule we're back on. But I'm just going to cherry pick a few points that I generally want to talk about from some of the things in them. So we had Coffee Bees, which was in the car. By some miracle, the Kia started. The flight home vlog, Lettuce Bees, which got deleted because she was high and trying to hide it. I'm Sorry, and then Dinner Bees, which ended with like a mystery knock that we haven't had an answer for yet, which ended up being deleted again. And Sorry, I'm Back. As I say, I'm not sure entirely which one these came from, so we're just going to go with it. So Foodie's back in Canada. Congratulations to her. She's in the villa, despite saying that she can't stay there as a married Muslim woman. And it's funny how these things don't seem to matter now she's back. She has mentioned that she's moving in with her mum, but kind of not really because she's going to be spending so much time in Kuwait. I've got a feeling the moving in with her mum might be more for financial benefit than anything she believes in. Because if it were based on the fact that she can't be with Pete, then she couldn't be with him for any length of time. She couldn't be there right now. She did at some point also mention that she forgot her wedding ring. And when she went through immigration, she had told them, because they were asking very invasive questions, you know, like, hey, what have you been doing? You're back, hi. The kind of way that immigration does. And she had mentioned she was visiting her fiance, not her husband. So all the proof of her being married somehow wasn't available when she was walking through a border. Isn't that interesting? She did say something a little strange, speaking of immigration, my favourite topic. She says something like, so long as I have Canadian citizenship, I can live wherever I want. And it took me a minute to figure out what she was saying because I was like, well, of course. But she's saying she wouldn't lose her citizenship, which of course you wouldn't. You can be non-resident, an expat from your country. I myself am. What a ridiculous idea. Of course you can be non-resident. But it doesn't mean you have the rights to stay in another country indefinitely. And when she's spoken of returning to Kuwait, which she's still planning on doing, even though Salah's like, oh, inshallah, when I get to Canada, I think they both have very different ideas of where the future is going here. That after 3 months, you know, she can just stay there as long as she wants, but after 3 months, she can just take a little trip and she can go back in, which people do. People go in and out on tourist visas and you can get away with it for a while, but eventually someone notices that you've been, you know, applying for visas so often and they stop you. Some places have limits on how frequently you can go in. With the fact that she has to pre-apply, I'm guessing there's records somewhere, but she'll get away with it for a little while, like people do. However, that doesn't change the fact that if she's coming in and they're not married, which I still don't think they are, then she's still going to be living with him illegally. And I do wonder, with the fact that usually if you're coming in as a tourist, you have to prove you have a hotel room, then how is she going to answer that? Because I don't think she's legally married. And if she were confident in the paperwork, as she apparently seems to be, then they would just get a family sponsorship and she would go and live with him. But I'm doubting she's registered that marriage with the courts in Canada. I could be wrong, but we haven't heard anything about it. She's had some mystery appointments. Maybe she'll claim that's what it was. But there's no reason for her not to be sponsored by Salah unless there's a reason she can't be sponsored by Salah. So, you know, apparently the loophole doesn't stretch that far. In terms of her Zoom call to the courts about her bankruptcy, we don't know very much information, but we do know that she came back talking about budget beesing and saving money by cooking instead of eating out, which she only really does when she's broke. And, you know, the end of the month when she's blowing through her paycheck and she starts doing cooking beesing, very much same energy. But she says it's because it will mean more money to travel and pay down debts. So we can infer from this that the bankruptcy was not discharged and that potentially the court has gotten more seriously about their expectations that she clean up her messes and, you know, start paying it back, We do know that the reason she had to talk to the court was because the trustee protested the discharge of the bankruptcy, which I feel like isn't a good sign. But we don't have confirmation of those particulars, so we don't know the details. As I say, the courts do have the power to garnish wages. I feel like someone said that they tend to do it less frequently if you're self-employed versus you have an employer who can be garnished. But I'm sure they have the ability to go in and take your money should they need to. And we will see. But I do wonder what the court would think about her spending money on international travel. She does try defending this. She's like, oh, well, I have a lot of points. And I questioned this, but someone reminded me of something. I questioned it and I was like, how do you have that many points when you've taken literally one trip to Cuba and one trip to Kuwait? Like, how do you have that many points? But someone did say that, you know, when you spend stuff on your credit card, you can get points and convert them. And we know she spends a lot on her cards. However, with her bankruptcy, not how much credit does she have? I thought she had that debit credit union thing. So I don't know how eligible she would be for these high reward credit cards. But it was a point that I hadn't considered, and it could be that she's got a lot of points from general purchases, which she definitely could have racked up. So a big thing with Chantal this time around is that she does admit to using weed. People had suspected she was trying to pass it off when she came live as being jet lagged and tired, but you know that quality her voice has. Her eyes were glassy as anything. You could blame that on tiredness, but you know that kind of quality her voice had, that airiness to it whenever she's high, and we've come to know it really well in the past year or so. It had that element to it, not as bad as she has been, but still there. And then she came on a second time high and it was more obvious. So she had been using THC, weed, whatever, and she says she thinks it's better to be wrong and honest about it than to lie and be shady. Oh, please show me evidence of this, because she did in fact try to be shady and to lie about it. You know, she lied on camera and then it stayed up for a while. She obviously passed out and went to sleep, and then when she woke up, she must have woken up to a lot of comments being like, hey now, you high, and she deleted it. She claims she found, okay, she had a couple of stories about this, but I think because she did it twice. So Pete was meant to go in and clear stuff out, but Pete obviously isn't going to know everywhere she hides her weed. Remember for a second just how many edibles and how much weed she was buying, like how much money she was investing into that. And my God, did I want to be a fly on that wall when she was explaining her spending to the court. My God. But she claimed she found some lemon haze, some zigzags, which I think, are they the wrappers? I don't know. You know me, I don't know the drug stuff. And her grinder and stuff in her drawer. So she had smoked that first night when we saw her. And then the following time we saw her, she had smoked and taken a small bite of gummy. And she says she'll never do it again, which is highly unlikely because she's already done it again. She did it once. And then notice as well the community post where she's like, I love you, Salah Habibi. And she's talking about how life-changing his presence in her life has been, would have been after the first time she smoked. We know they talked, but now that we know the circumstances of this, like, it does smack a little bit of guilt, doesn't it? Like, I know I'm in trouble. No, I love you. It doesn't feel secure there at all. She claims to have flushed the rest down the toilet in front of Salah, but she also admitted that the house is full of stuff. And given that she's starting to clean, but I'm guessing the place is still in quite a mess, like, there's no way she's not going to have more product in that house somewhere. Not even intentionally, but there's no way she's not going to have more stuff in the house somewhere, because she had it in so many places. It's going to be under boxes, it's going to be in drawers, it's going to be stuff behind the couch, it's going to be stuck in between places, it's going to be like in her bathroom, it's going to be stacked up under somewhere. She's a messy person, and she's just going to have a ton of stuff everywhere, and she's not going to be able to resist it. And you can tell in her thinking. She mentioned she has a lot of points saved up. I'm assuming she means like loyalty points with the place she was buying the stuff, because I can completely believe that. She used to buy it so often. But it does make you think, well, why is she mentioning this? Because it makes it sound like she's still got it on the brain, but it does make you think, why is she mentioning that? Why is she thinking about how many points she's got? And I think it's because she knows right now she doesn't have the money, but if she's spending points instead of money, that justifies it because she's not doing wrong because it's quote unquote free. So if she's already justifying that process in her brain, it's not a good sign for her never using again. Because it's the game we play, and it's the same game you play when you diet and you're trying to figure out why, oh no, well, I can have this because of this. She's doing exactly the same thing with the THC in the weed. And you see it all through her discussion of, it's so easy to get here, it's so supported here, it's expected here almost. And, we talked before about how it was going to be interesting when she got back to Canada. And I'll admit, I was optimistic with how much she had beat her chest and been like, no, I am a changed woman, whether I believed it or not. I thought she'd last longer than one day. But we've had the conversation before about how it's a very different scenario to be in Kuwait where you cannot get hold of this stuff or under very harsh penalties than being at home where it's readily available, because she's not a changed woman. And we've seen that in anything she can control, she hasn't controlled. Her eating, she has admitted, has been off the rails. I'm not judging her for eating off the rails, but I'm saying she said she had made a change and she hasn't made a change. Okay, that happens. But the way she speaks to people, oh, I'm going to be a modest Muslim woman, I'm going to respect people. Women here don't do that to each other. But any chance she's had to rage, she's raged, and she's done it publicly, and she's done it with such vitriol towards Allah's wife. It's been amazing. Like, it would have been a lot even in Canada, and she chose to do it there after making all these grandiose announcements about the changes in her character. So anything she's had control of, she hasn't controlled. But her weed intake, she had no control of. She had no choice but to not. And now she's back in Canada, she has to make the choice. And she is finding that she can't. Or rather, she can, but she's choosing not to. So I think that's just going to escalate, because if you do it once and then you go, God, that's an awful idea, and you don't do it again, that's one thing. But she's already done it again, which means she's already going to do it again. Because I can totally believe that it's incredibly hard for her right now to not do it, simply because she's back in her old environment. And if you want to see a change, going back into all your old habits isn't going to help you. So she goes from being in Kuwait, being able to, not very well, but at least try and present her husband and her new life, and things being limited in terms of her access, to going back to the reality of her life, which is the very thing that she's been trying to escape. So she had to go back and deal with the bankruptcy, which would have been very stressful for her. She has to face the fact that she doesn't have the money, that she's got to move out into her mom's. All of the practical things that she spends her life running away from, she now has to sort out. And it's not the fairy tale she was hoping for, and she doesn't really want to do it. And she said she's going to go to the police about Nada as soon as she got home, and she hasn't yet, as far as we know. She has had that drive appointment thing where she couldn't talk about what it was, which I'm sure we'll find out about next time she gets high. But one of her chat had reminded her about going to the police, and she was like, oh yeah. And it didn't sound like she had particular plans to do it. She sounded reluctant, which made me kind of roll my eyes a little bit. So I don't think that is what that was about. It was probably connected to the courts or to some other responsibility that she didn't want to deal with, doctors, whatever it is. Now, as I mentioned, I think it was in my last react, if she does end up being an ex-resident, she needs to sort out her status in Canada correctly, especially as she's dealing with all these things. She can't just disappear and pretend she's there. She had another live that ended with a kind of abrupt door knock. We all know, like, when people knock the door, you get a sense of when it's an official knock and when it's not. It sounded official. She got off live very quickly. She didn't even go, she was like, come in. Why would you just shout for them to come in? What? But anyway, we don't know who was at the door. She did come back though, a little bit smug, being like, I can't talk about who was at the door, but I just found out something interesting. If you keep reacting to someone again and again, that's criminal harassment. It can be, depending on what you say. That is true. Now, we actually had a conversation about criminal harassment here on channel a little while back. Before Dee Dee became more of a main character, I had argued that the way Foodie spent over a year just running her down in every way, every base insult she could think of, for the amount of time she did, could be counted as criminal harassment. Particularly now we've seen more and more of like the messages she's sent and things, like that could be criminal harassment. And so we'd had a conversation about that. And the problem Chantal has is that everything she has ever complained about other people doing, she has done herself. And that makes it really, really hard to have a leg to stand on in terms of a case. And given that she won't even follow through on a court case for copyright, and she doesn't have the money to do so, I very much doubt she's going to do anything else. But she felt smug about it and seemed to think that she was proving a point. And I'm like, okay, we'll see how far that goes, because you are known for your consistency. Okay, that's about all I actually have today. A short one. I know there was more, but I got to the point where there were so many lives and I was like, I can't keep track of these details. If she goes live again, I'll take a look into it. She had a lot of, I am never doing this again. No, I believe in my God and in my husband, and I'm never going to do this again. And I would just say, reactors, well, if you're in the business of reacting, clip those, because I've started a folder on my desktop called This Is Gonna Age Like Milk. And that's a good addition for that folder. And I'm sure, as I say, we'll see her high soon and we'll probably get more information on some of the things I find more interesting here. But until that moment, thank you for being here and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.